Where do potatoes come from? Many are grown here in northern Maine on a potato farm owned and operated by GB+D Farms. This fall, I had the pleasure of photographing the operations at GB+D Farms as they harvested their more than 500 acres of potatoes. GB+D Farms is a family operation, which includes growing potatoes as well as oats. GB+D Farms is located in St. John, has an office in Fort Kent, and plants potatoes in St. Francis, St. John, Soldier Pond, and in New Canada. In recent years, GB+D Farms have also diversified in firewood sales. The CEO of the company is George Pelletier, a good-natured man who spends most of his time driving around in his pickup, making sure that things run smoothly. The real farmer in the group is Dennis. He is the one who cares for the fields. He plows the fields, plants the crops, sprays for insects, and operates the potato harvester. Bruce is responsible for running the potato storage and packing shed. He makes sure that the crop is well stored and ready to be shipped to market during the winter months. Anne, George's daughter, soon joined the boys on the farm, but her interests soon changed as she took over the firewood sales operation of the family farm. However, she is as much at home on a tractor as operating a chainsaw. Bruce's sons, Mitchell and Jacob, although barely out of elementary school, joined their father on the farm. This is Jacob, who would rather drive a truck than wash dishes at home. Sarah is Bruce's youngest, an emerging teenager, trying to decide if farming is a possible career. During the potato harvest, GB+D Farms hires many people to help bring in the crop. This includes harvester workers, windrow operators, truck drivers, and potato shed workers. Seen here is Brad, who works on the harvester. He is a reliable, dependable, and hard-working individual. There are 4 people that work on the harvester. Nadia is the second member of the harvester crew. A sophomore in high school, she always showed up in full makeup and designer jeans. Megan was another member of the harvester crew, a high school honors student who was highly motivated, very hardworking, and one with such a bright future. A fleet of 4 trucks bring the harvested potatoes from the field to the storage shed. This is Jacques, a skilled truck driver who is also handy, making sure that his truck is always in tip-top shape. Norman was a professional truck driver for most of his life. Now retired, he uses his driving skills to make sure that the potatoes arrive at the storage shed in quality conditions. Terry is the fix-it person. During the harvest, he drives a truck, but is always called upon to assist in repairing other equipment on the farm. Matt is comfortable with any piece of equipment. This harvest season, he operated a truck and could always be depended on to be in the fields early in the morning or late in the evening. Although the potato harvester by itself will only pick up 2 rows of potatoes at a time, windrowers are used to dig up multiple rows and place them in the field where the harvester can then pick them up. Dana operated a windrower, always on time, especially for coffee breaks. Barbara is the most important person at GB+D Farms. She takes care of all the books, the accounting, and does the payroll. In addition, each day she bakes some type of sweets and brings them to the workers along with hot coffee. Her cinnamon rolls are the best. All farms have a dog as a mascot. Cassie belongs to GB+D Farms. Always willing to play, she will fetch potatoes, ride in the farm trucks, and even likes to sample the lunches that the workers bring. Every farmer has a preference to a farm equipment brand. GB+D Farms prefers the quality, service, dependability, and color green of John Deere. Potatoes were once harvested by hand. Today, harvesting is all done mechanically, requiring specialized equipment. This is a windrower. This machine digs potatoes out of the ground and then drops them on top of the ground to be later picked up by the harvester. This model digs up 4 rows of potatoes at once. This is a 2-row windrower. It digs up only 2 rows of potatoes at a time. 14-wheeled trucks are used to haul the potatoes from the field to the storage shed. The carrying box on the back of the truck holds 250 barrels of potatoes. This is 40,000 pounds of potatoes. Usually, there are 4 trucks needed for each potato harvester. The harvester is the machine that picks up the potatoes that were dug up by the windrowers, as well as digging up 2 additional rows. Although there are many different types of potato harvesters, this is a Thomas air harvester. It is pulled by a powerful John Deere tractor. Once the potatoes are dug, they must be stored until they are sold. GB+D Farms has one large storage house. This particular storage facility has 4 large bins, each of which holds 25,000 barrels of potatoes. While harvesting the potatoes, a lot of dirt is brought to the storage shed along with the potatoes. At the shed, this skid steer machine is used to remove the dirt from the floor. It is also used later in the potato loading process to remove the potatoes from the storage bins. With all of this equipment, the potato harvest begins. The fields where the potatoes are grown vary in size, from a few acres to 50 or more acres. This particular field in St. John was more than 50 acres. Potatoes grow in the ground. The windrower is the first piece of machinery that goes down the rows and digs up the potatoes. As the windrower moves down the field, it digs up 4 rows of potatoes and drops them onto the ground. Here we see the dug up potatoes being dropped back on the ground. Incidentally, they are not just dropped onto the ground, but rather are dropped between 2 undug rows. As we see here, the windrower is dropping the potatoes between 2 rows, which have not yet been dug. Actually, even these will be later picked up by another windrower and dropped into 2 other undug rows. Once the first windrower goes by, A second windrower comes behind and digs up another 4 rows of potatoes. The second windrower then drops the potatoes into another set of undug rows. If you look carefully to the right, you will see the potatoes that were dug up by the first windrower. Finally, a third windrower comes along and picks up the 4 rows that were dug up by the first harvester, digs up 2 additional rows, and then drops all of these on top of the potatoes that were dug up by the second windrower. Once the third windrower has gone by, this leaves a pile of potatoes between 2 more undug rows. Behind the 3 windrowers comes the harvester. Not only does it pick up the 10 rows dug up by the windrowers, but also digs up 2 additional rows for a grand total of 12 rows. As the harvester moves down the rows, the potatoes are dug out of the ground and then move up a series of conveyors. This photo shows the front of the harvester, where the potatoes are dug out of the ground. At the end of the conveyors, the potatoes are dropped into a waiting truck. Here you will see the end of the conveyors, just before the potatoes are put into the truck. As the potatoes move along the conveyors, rocks, dirt, and vines are removed. On the last conveyor, there are 4 people who stand and remove any debris that has not been removed. Brad was one of the 4 people on the last conveyor. All sorts of debris remains on that final conveyor. On one of the fields, which was 1 mile away from the Fort Kent golf course, the harvester would occasionally pick up golf balls, which had been carried to the field by seagulls. Sarah was one of the people who worked on the last conveyor. Here she shows 2 of the treasures that came up through the conveyor. That is, one is a golf ball and one is a really nice red potato. On one day, in one of the St. John fields, a total of 31 golf balls were collected. Note that 5 golf balls were from tournaments held at the Fort Kent golf course. At the end of the last conveyor, the potatoes are ready to be dropped into a waiting truck. Once the truck arrives, the potatoes are dropped from the harvester into the box on the back of the truck. The truck slowly fills with potatoes. Much care is given to make sure that the potatoes are dropped carefully to avoid any bruising. Here we see the truck as well as the harvester. Notice the different conveyors on the harvester. The conveyor with the large spacing is the one that removes most of the vines and the large rocks. Here we see the potato vines dropping to the ground from the back of the harvester. As the harvester digs the potatoes, it also collects rocks that are in the field. The rocks are collected in a special container on the harvester and then dropped in piles in the field. After harvest, the rock piles are collected and moved from the field. With the truck now full of potatoes, it then leaves the field and heads for the potato storage shed. GB+D Farms has one large potato shed which holds some 100,000 barrels of potatoes. When the loaded truck arrives at the potato storage shed, it backs up to one of the large bins. The potatoes are then unloaded from the truck onto a series of conveyors. As the potatoes fall on the first conveyor, any additional dirt is removed and falls to the ground. As the potatoes continue on the conveyor, workers remove any remaining rocks and vines. Potatoes with any blemishes are also removed. The last conveyor stacks the potatoes in a large 25,000 barrel bin. This is a lot of potatoes. Note the tube that is in the left of the conveyor. The tube is used for ventilation of the potatoes. The tubes are placed under the potatoes and then air is pumped through the tubes. With small holes inside the tube, the air then circulates through the potatoes, keeping them fresh during storage. Once the potatoes have been stacked in the bin, the dirt that fell under the conveyor is then removed using the skid steer. Once the empty truck leaves and the dirt is removed, the crew then takes a break while waiting for the next truck to arrive. During the break, some major decisions are made, including what are we going to have for dinner tonight? Here George is worried that dinner will include potatoes. Weather plays a very important part in the month-long harvest season. This season, the early part of the season was very dry, while a lot of rain fell at the end of the harvesting season. Note the dust that the harvester created in the early part of the season. There was so much dust in the early season. Here we can see the dust created by a pickup that was traveling slowly through the field. Notice the dust behind the truck as it approaches the harvester. The drought that was causing all the dust also made it easier to get to some of the fields in St. Francis. Here the truck is crossing the dry St. John riverbed. Some years, when there is a lot of rain during harvest, trucks have to wade through the moving St. John River to get to the island fields. This is a view of the potato harvester that was crossing the dry St. John riverbed to get to the next field. GB+D Farms starts harvesting each day at 7 a.m. and quits at 7 p.m. At the end of September, the daylight hours shorten, and by 7 p.m., it is completely dark. Here we see the lights on the harvester at 7 p.m. The lights allow for the harvesting to continue into the night. However, GB+D Farms is very respectful of its employees and sticks to the 7 to 7 work schedule. Being a farmer requires many skills. The farmer has to have some mechanical abilities. With the stress of the harvest, machines break down. The farmer must be a mechanic. Here, a broken belt on the harvester is being fixed. The farmer must also be an electrician. At the potato storage shed, all the equipment runs on electricity. A licensed electrician is not always on hand. But the potato harvest is not all work. There is plenty of time to play. Here, Cassie the farm mascot is being teased. But the highlight of each day, for all the workers, is the afternoon break time. Barbara arrives each afternoon with coffee and snacks. The goodies range from cinnamon rolls to apple pie. During the break, Barbara is everyone's best friend. Everyone enjoys break time, from the harvester workers to those working at the potato shed. Yes, GB+D Farms is a real family operation. All the workers feel like they are part of the family. It is through the collective efforts of everyone that the more than 500 acres of potatoes are harvested. Now you know a little more about how potatoes are harvested. It is no longer done by hand, but rather by a team of skilled professionals. To George, Bruce, Dennis, Ann, Barbara, and the entire family of GB+D Farms, as well as all those that worked on the harvest, a sincere thank you for the pleasure of documenting your 2012 potato harvest. It was a good crop, a safe season, and a whole lot of fun. Thank you.